If there's a perfect mess kit breakfast, this is probably it. I'll tell you how to make them and who first put them on a menu. Plus, I'll share my preferred cup of joe, all on this week's Making a Mess with the Yankee Camper. Breakfast burritos. If I'm being honest, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have even considered eating a breakfast burrito. But now they're part of a common breakfast, and I put together one that you can make out at the campsite. The first thing you'll need to measure out is 6 tablespoons of dehydrated egg crystals, 1 tablespoon of butter powder. I have 1/2 a teaspoon of white cheddar powder. Now this has got salt added to it, so it works pretty well for this particular recipe, but it doesn't melt, it just sort of blends. 1/2 a teaspoon of dried minced onions, 1 teaspoon of cilantro, 1/4 a teaspoon of jalapeno peppers. These are dried jalapeno peppers. You can also use crushed red pepper if you prefer. I have these. I think they taste pretty good, so I'm going to include these. 1/4 a teaspoon of salt. As I mentioned, the cheddar powder is got some salt in it, so this just boosts the flavor a little bit. And a dash of black pepper. I've mixed all of those ingredients into a small Loctite plastic bag. And I'm going to place those inside my paper bag, which I've marked breakfast burritos. I also have 2 strips of fully cooked bacon. And I've placed those inside of a Loctite plastic bag as well. I've also put in a silica gel pack that will help keep the moisture out. Now, this says to refrigerate after opening, which is what I typically do until just before I'm heading out. This will stay for a couple of days without worrying about it, especially since I'm going out in the cold, so I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm going to add that to my bag as well. I've got 2 packets of picante sauce, which I picked up at a local fast food restaurant, and you can use taco sauce or whatever kind of sauce works for you. Those go into the bag as well. I've got 2 taco shells. These work really well for a breakfast burrito for folding them up, the smaller size. Now I've folded those into quarters gently so as to not crack them. And I've also included a silica gel pack in that. And I'll just place those in as well. You'll need 1 tablespoon of vegetable shortening. I've put that shortening into a small container. I'll put that in as well. Seal this up. And I'm ready for my breakfast out at the campsite. I'll see you out there. This channel runs on Dunkin. That coffee you see me pouring into my cup is Dunkin Original Blend, pre-measured at home, and percolated on the camp stove. I've been a Dunkin drinker for most of my adult life. As a matter of fact, in the early part of this century, I was such a frequent flyer at Dunkin' Donuts that they actually sent me a gift card and traveling mug. I still have and use that card. When I visited the former Four River Shipyard for my last video on James Kilroy, I knew I'd be close to the original Dunkin' location and had to stop in. I used to come here when I was working in the area back in the 90s. I stopped in and got a medium black coffee and a cream-filled donut. While there, I took a couple of photos of the original location marker and the wall showing the progression of Dunkin' logos over the years. Standing there got me thinking about how it all started. In 1948, Bill Rosenberg opened a restaurant on this very spot
under the name Open Kettle. By 1950, he'd recognized that coffee and donuts were selling together, with many customers dipping the deep-fried treats into their coffee before taking a bite. That simple habit inspired a new name that reflected the action: Dunkin' Donuts. In 1963, Rosenberg turned over the leadership of the growing company to his son Bob, who, at just 25 years old, became CEO and would guide Dunkin' Donuts through decades of expansion. Around 1972, the company introduced a tiny product with a big impact. Made from the dough removed to create the holes in traditional donuts, Munchkins transformed what had once been a byproduct into a best-selling snack. Named after the fictional residents of Munchkinland from The Wizard of Oz, the bite-sized treats were an immediate success and helped expand Dunkin's appeal beyond travelers and coffee drinkers to families as well. For the first 4 decades of the company's history, donuts were made in-house by local bakers, and the aroma of baking helped draw in hungry customers. By the time Michael Vale first appeared as Fred the Baker in 1982, Dunkin' Donuts had already grown to more than 1,000 locations and was well on its way from a New England favorite to a national brand. Even as the chain spread across the country, Dunkin' remained a part of everyday life here in New England. In 1990, Dunkin' Donuts entered a new chapter when it was acquired by a British company, and the brand has changed hands several times since. The Dunkin' Donuts I grew up knowing is mostly gone today. Although some stores were still making donuts the old-fashioned way, by the early 2000s, the company had largely shifted production from in-store baking to centralized facilities where donuts are made by machine, partially cooked, frozen, and then shipped to stores for finishing. At the same time, the industry was becoming increasingly beverage-focused and less dependent on sweet treats, although Dunkin' continued expanding its menu with muffins, bagels, and other baked goods. In 2003, the original Dunkin' Donut, the cake donut with the small handle designed for dunking in coffee, was discontinued. 16 years later, the company officially dropped donuts from its name entirely and became simply Dunkin'. Now, don't get me wrong, I've tried plenty of other coffee brands over the years, including the one from Seattle. But the Java I grew up drinking is still the one that goes into my camp coffee pot. And as for the name, around here, we simply call it Dunks. Now, you know. Let's head out to the campsite and start making breakfast.
I hope you're enjoying this video, but I don't receive any compensation for this. One thing you can do is buy me a cup of coffee. Doesn't have to be very much. Just a couple of dollars would be great. I'll put a QR code and the link right over here. Now, let's get back to the video. Let's make our breakfast of burritos. We'll take out our ingredients. We've got tortillas. Now I've swapped these tortillas for smaller ones. The ones that I used in the Mise Plus were a little bit big. These are actually fajita size. Got my bacon. I've got my mixture. 2 packets of sauce and some vegetable shortening. For this recipe, all I'm going to need is my fry pan and one of the plastic measuring cups. I'll take that out and everything else can get put aside. Let's start by opening the bacon. Don't eat that. We're just going to break this up into little pieces into the fry pan. You can see those are broken up into nice small pieces. We'll light the stove. Set the bacon on a very low heat. Next, we'll measure out 1/3 of a cup of water. Be sure to keep an eye on the bacon. Make sure that it doesn't start getting too overcooked. We'll open our egg mixture and pour that right into the cup. Using our fork, we're just going to whisk that mixture until it's completely covered in wet. As that bacon cooks, it'll render some of the grease out. And that may be enough grease to cook the scrambled eggs. But you'll want to check, and that's why I brought extra vegetable shortening just in case. These actually look like they're going to be okay. Whisk those eggs until all of the ingredients are completely covered, and you've removed as much of the dry lumps as you can.
I'll finish whisking those at the campsite, but let me take a couple of minutes and tell you about the history of breakfast burritos. If you've watched my Making a Mess series, you already know that I create ways to prepare meals using little more than a mess kit and a handful of shelf-stable ingredients, including making breakfast. Over the years, I've made maple cream of wheat, spam and eggs, and even fried shredded wheat. This time, I'm actually tackling breakfast burritos. They may seem like a modern convenience food, but like many popular camp meals, they have an interesting history of their own. Most food historians trace their roots to New Mexico, where generations of people had already been wrapping traditional breakfast foods in flour tortillas. Scrambled eggs, potatoes, cheese, bacon, sausage, and green chili made for a hearty meal that could be eaten by hand. While variations had existed for years, many credit Jim Marial, part owner of the restaurant called Tia Sophia's in Santa Fe, with being the first to place the term breakfast burrito on a menu in 1975. From there, the idea spread rapidly across the Southwest. Here in New England, morning meals looked a lot different. I grew up on cold cereal with milk, bacon and eggs, frozen waffles, and pancakes. Burritos as a menu item pretty much didn't exist, never mind one for the first meal of the day. But the breakfast burrito had one big advantage: convenience. It packed an entire morning meal into a handheld package that could be eaten while driving to work, heading to a job site, or hitting the road to get away, like for a camping trip. Fast food companies soon noticed. McDonald's had already transformed the breakfast industry with the Egg McMuffin in the 1970s, proving that Americans would buy breakfast from a drive-thru. By the late 1980s and early 90s, the Golden Arches introduced its own breakfast burrito, filled with eggs, sausage, cheese, onions, and peppers wrapped in a flour tortilla. Other chains soon followed, and what had once been a southwestern specialty began appearing on menus across the country. The impact was bigger than it might seem. Before breakfast burritos became mainstream, fast food breakfast menus were dominated by sandwiches, pancakes, and pastries. The burrito introduced a completely different format: portable, customizable, and capable of holding a wide variety of ingredients. It helped pave the way for the fast-paced, handheld breakfast options we take for granted today. In many ways, it expanded what Americans thought breakfast could be. Today, you can find breakfast burritos just about everywhere, including here in New England. They're sold in diners, convenience stores, coffee shops, and of course, fast food restaurants. Some are packed with eggs and bacon, while others include steak, vegetables, or even lobster along the coast. And honestly, it's easy to see why they've lasted. They're warm, filling, and easy to carry. That's a combination that works just as well in a campground near Boston as it does on a highway in New Mexico. For campers, these are almost the perfect food. The main ingredients all go into one Ziploc bag. Just add water and heat them in your frying pan. Plus, they're easy to eat while holding a cup of coffee. And that leaves only one important question. Are you going to have hot sauce with that or maple syrup? Now you know. Let's head back to the campsite. I suspect that bacon's just about done.
The bacon bits are fairly crispy. I'm just going to take the egg mixture and pour that right into the pan. We'll cook those eggs over low heat. As you can see, little peaks are starting to form as the eggs are cooking. If those eggs start to stick, be sure and turn the heat down. While those eggs firm up, I'm going to take out my tortillas. Just place them in the plate for right now. Continue to cook those eggs until they get to a consistency where you prefer them. I like mine very dry. And you can see those eggs look like they're done. I'm just going to place them on a pot holder for a moment. I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit. Place my tortilla right on the stove. I'll let that cook on either side for about 30 seconds per side. Give it a flip. Then I'll do the same for the other tortilla. While that's heating through, I'm just going to load my tortilla with half of the egg mixture. Keep an eye on the tortilla so it doesn't catch. There we go. Shut the heat off. Lastly, open your packet of sauce. You put some of that right onto the egg mixture. I'm only going to use one packet. Fold this into a burrito. I'm going to eat my breakfast and then I'll clean up my mess. If you've enjoyed this video, take a moment and give it a thumbs up. It just lets YouTube know that you enjoy the videos that I'm putting out. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider doing so. I'd love to hear from you, so leave me a message in the comment section. I read every single one and I try to respond. In the meantime, I hope you'll get outside, and thank you for watching. That's got some kick.